I'm not surprised this golfer felt like he had no other choice but to get rid of this golf club, especially when I break down each component of it and some evidence I see of certain bad shots. But is there such a thing as a bad driver in 2025 or a bad build for a particular swing? Well, I guess that's what we're going to find out. Jesus, even I can't keep this thing up in the air. Wow. Guys, how you doing? Welcome back to a brand new video. Simon here, SAS Golf Academy, and what a monster I have in my hand here. But more importantly, as much as it has that monster label, especially with the shaft in it, why someone felt compelled to trade this bad boy in? And realistically, how I can stop you guys from making this mistake I have here, as I want to do a bit of testing, as I'm going to make one crucial, very small technical change when I test both of these drivers side by side. And ultimately, that small technical change is going to deliver completely different results for both pieces of equipment. However, before we get into that, let's look at the club that we have here. 8-degree triple diamond elite head. So overall, this is already a low spinning, a low launching driver head. You pair that up with the brand new Tensai Black 1K shaft that I have here, 65 gram, extra stiff, even for a player such as myself that swings 120 miles an hour, and I guess you could group in this kind of build of driver head and shaft combination. I want to explain why I wouldn't play this and why actually I'd opt for something that spins a touch more and doesn't necessarily go as far. Because don't get me wrong, if I had 10 balls and I'm entering a long drive competition, you better believe I'm teeing this bad boy up, giving it a hit, and if I square that face up nicely, oh yes, she is gone. 320 carry, just under 350 yards. But Simon, surely that means this is the perfect driver build for you, as it just did produce pretty good numbers and went an astronomical distance. Well, we have to understand game is a golf of averages, just not one particular shot in general. Which is why I have this particular build with me today to prove a point with the results at the end. Which driver out of these two would help me shoot the lowest score, especially when I change something at setup that would then introduce a technical flaw. And we're going to discuss these marks on the face and what that tells me about this particular golfer's technical flaws. And ultimately, the best way to improve technical flaws is by effective practice. And you might be thinking, Simon, how do I create effective practice for myself? Well, luckily, the sponsor of today's video has just got a lot better at giving you just that. Swingtweaks has a new update. Not only do they give you high quality PGA advice with drills, analysis, and obviously videos for you to follow, they're now including a 3-week practice plan with every single swing tweak that you obviously order. We've all heard the 10,000 hour rule when it comes to being a master of a particular skill, but those 10,000 hours have to be efficient. And once you've sent your 2 videos, face on and also down the line to Swingtweaks, one of their PGA pros is going to dissect your swing, give you analysis, simple feedback, and now a 3-week plan to go with it. So each hour that you do spend practicing is very much in the right direction. If that interests you and you want 20% off your first swing tweak, use the code on screen as well as links in description down below. And let's do some investigating on this thing, shall we? The only way you can get scratches like these on the face is that if dirt, stone, flint, sand gets in between the face and the ball at the point of impact. And this is the driver I've been using for the last, let's say, 2.5 years. And as you can see, there's no scratches, but quite a lot of evidence of missed strikes. Hence why I'm always trying to improve my golf swing. But the reason this is important, especially with this one at the bottom here, I'll put a little arrow, and you can see how high that mark is on the top of the driver there. The only way that mark can be created is by hitting the ground before the golf ball and also coming quite steep. Therefore, you're still coming down and hitting the ground. We're not hitting the ground here and then hitting up through the ball. It's very much this movement here. And if you struggle with these strikes on the top of the driver here, it's because you are coming too steep down into the golf ball. As you can see, if I did the opposite, i.e. I was hitting too much on the inside, arguably getting stuck on the inside as well, and I'm coming from this way, notice that realistically, the only part of the driver face I can hit is the bottom, versus the opposite, where I'm coming very much with my shoulders way too early, dragging this handle down into the golf ball, then releasing the club, causing, well, that kind of sky mark on the top. But this doesn't mean you can't swing fast doing it. And it also means that even with this technique, which traditionally increases spin on a driver, because it actually adds spin loft to the ball. Let's say you launch the ball at 11 degrees and you hit down on it by 3 degrees. For argument's sake, your spin loft is 14 degrees. That down of 13 degrees added to the 11 loft. And the faster you are, the smaller your spin loft has to be to get that 2000 RPM and let's say 11 to 13 degree launch angle. As an example, let's swing incredibly slow, come very much down on the ball, add loft, but because I only swang at 45 miles an hour, and let's be honest, the angle between my angle attack at 4.8 and my launch at 12, I mean, that's close to a 16-degree spin loft. Now, obviously, I'm hypothesizing, but as I show you with this experiment next, so many of you are going to relate to this. And not only do you want to drop the spin, but all of you want to improve your consistency, whereas this solution I have in my hand for this hypothetical golfer solves one problem, and that is dropping the launch and dropping the spin. What it can't do is help the dispersion, and why actually sometimes a bit more backspin, as I said at the start, could actually help you. Which is where this thing comes in. Rogue ST Max D, so the draw bias head, 10.5, lofted up, so that actually closes the face as well, with just a standard mid kick point tensile blue. Again, a very standard driver shaft for a lot of you guys out there, and quite a good all-rounder shaft. And before we go into the comparison of these two, why technique is so important and why I've potentially overdone this feeling for many years, because a lot of my channel is about how good old equipment is, and normally good is under the brackets of distance, and therefore without the shaft and the head combination, regardless of whatever that is in my hand, I like to show it can go far, which means that I reduce my spin loft. How do I reduce my spin loft? Well, that's exactly what I want to show you. And even with this Reg Flex 55 gram, 12 degree driver, I'm quite good at dropping that spin. Yes, this is a touch high, and again, that's where club fitting would come in. But a lot of you would be at 4,500, 4,600. But it was just under 300 yards, and I'm going to make a small change now, a technical change, which some of you might be able to spot out quite quickly, some of you not, but how it affects our spin loft so much. Why that elite driver will go further in a minute on the good one. But does that make us play better golf? Does ultimately one longer drive out of all of them help in terms of our score over 18 holes? Well, in my experience, not necessarily. Like 300 yards with the last one, similar speed. Actually, I probably won't be able to get as much speed with this technique. Oh, she was straight, and she's got snow on it. Oh, it is so difficult to close the face with this technique. 6,000 spin, very much offline. Oh, there she is. That's it. We closed the face enough. What was our spin? 4,000 spin. You can notice how it stalls in the air. Let's just get one more with this driver. That was actually quite a good one. Oh, we closed it. Oh, it's actually quite consistent. This might just change to this kind of swing. And because I'm fast, I'm still getting good distance, but nowhere near that 300-yarder that we had at the start. 4,399 backspin, which means 276. Means that we're not getting close to that 300-yard mark. Right, it's elite time. Same technical change which makes it very difficult for me to get the club in the place that I want it to, make it very difficult to keep that club face closed on the way down, essentially increasing that spin loft, and to be honest, giving me that huge slice that even I was able to do with my anti-slice driver, which should be a reminder to a lot of you. If you have that as a bad shot, there's not much equipment out there that's going to be able to help. However, if you change what I'm changing at the moment, potentially that will. Oh. This is why I always talk about golf clubs being able to help and nurture one thing, but not necessarily both. There we go, we got it close enough. What's my spin now? 2,175, which means I just carried it 290, 3, 2, 1, and if you're in a club fitting session, sold. However, as we hit some more, and again, I promise you, I am trying my hardest just to hit this straight. There's one driver that's going to be more consistent for this particular swing rather than another. And you've got to ask yourself, is 25 yards with my technical flaws at the moment worth it? Oh, yeah. And again, that spin's going to be low. So even though that's heel and left, that side spin's taking it for a ride. Oh, there we go. Did we do it? I mean, that's still bottoming. I've had to almost hit that off the front edge to get it to go straight. But if we don't look at my swing or anything else, are they relatively good numbers? Is my efficiency good? Yes. Is my launch a tiny bit low? You could argue. Have I got good carry and good distance? Of course I have, for 117 miles an hour. But at what cost? If I was going into this green, 374 yards from the tee there, and again, I hit those drives, I've got a 9-iron, maybe a wedge. Here, I've got a flick, 90 yards, 80 yards, something like that. But look at all the destruction down the right. I'm not saying that equipment can eradicate this particular shot, but there's certainly some out there that's going to help alleviate that. And this is where I can get frustrated when people buy these particular pieces of equipment, because on paper, when we've just eradicated all the bad shots through a driver fitting, we could easily go that elite driver, when we ignore this bit up here, is better for that golfer. Look how much more carry we've got. Look how much more distance. Our spin's where it should be compared to obviously the Rogue ST. Our launch is okay. And again, look, I've got more ball speed. Why? Because there's less spin loft. Did that spin loft, however, actually help the bad shot? The answer is no. Before I show you the technical change, I think it's easy for me to say, not either of these drivers could be great for that particular golfer. Obviously, it's a technical fault. However, this one was so much easier to close the face. Yes, it added more spin, but then also that spin helped us on the bad shots. This is an inch shorter, again helping me close the face. It's a regular flex, meaning the torque is higher. It also helped me close the face. But then again, because of that high torque, it added higher dynamic loft. We saw higher launch at that particular speed, which meant less distance. The technical change being my left hand grip. That is literally all I changed. And again, sorry for the dirty glove, but it kind of proves the point. You can see where my driver normally rests, underneath this part. The reason that's important is because I've got full control of that shaft. Notice I can hold it with my forefinger and also that fleshy bit on my grip, meaning I've now not only got control of the head with my left hand, I also have the ability to do a full face rotation. Full, really closed on the way down. And if I need to hit a ladies flex high torque driver 300 yards, I could. Wouldn't recommend it, but I could. Especially with the driver, the longest club in the bag. If you're holding the driver like this in the palm and do the same test, it is impossible for you to hold the club. Again, this is the only thing I changed throughout the swing. And having it in the palm there, for example, let's do the same test. How much can I turn the face? Nowhere near as much. because again, it's butting against my left wrist. And from this position, I need to close it another way. So if I'm closing the face another way, that is typically standing up, backing out, releasing it, casting it, whatever you want to call it, which, by the way, adds spin. If you spin the ball too much and you go to the left, which again, hypothetically could have been this golfer, then actually it's a blessing. This shaft's gonna keep the face more open. It's gonna keep the loft down. This head design wants to reduce that spin loft. Therefore, for me, it should be the perfect build for hitting pretty straight drives. The problem is that ratio is so small for me. I've only put 305 side spin on there. Look how much curvature my ball flight just got, meaning that I'm only 100, 200 RPM of side spin away, hitting it more than 15 yards offline. But as hopefully you've seen through today's video, technique and equipment can produce long straight drives. Don't just go for raw distance if it is ultimately affecting with your dispersion. And to be honest, if that particular golfer was hitting this 320 down the middle, I can't imagine it would have been traded in. Again, massive thank you to Swingtweaks for sponsoring this video, link in the description. I'll catch you guys in the next one.